So how did you end up, because you ended up with, 20, 25 units or whatever.
Yep.
How did that transition into, becoming intertwined with Grant Cardone? Did you become his pilot first?
Yeah.
Like he met you at an event? Like what was the connection point?
So I found him on YouTube, actually YouTube and Bigger Pockets. And when he got on the Bigger Pockets podcast, Bigger Pockets was coming up and he was talking, I've got 2,500 units. I want to grow my portfolio. Like I'm looking for people to partner with. And I thought to myself, I'm like, man, this guy's buying an airplane. He didn't even have the airplane yet. So I actually got hired on as a sales guy. And then I met Elena and then I got an interview as a pilot. And I told him I'll do whatever it takes. I'll work with him. Cause he asked me, he's like, hey, if I hire you as the pilot, the biggest issue with pilots is that you have a bunch of days off when we're not flying. Will you work with me in the company? And I'm like, Grant, that's why I'm here. Like I want to, because for me, it's always been about mentors. Your story is probably similar. Like I've always had a mentor. Like it was my uncle, it was my the check airman, it was the other pilots. Like it was the people. Like when I was flying, I had mentors that had 30,000 hours, and I had 2,000 hours. But I always found myself, I was attracted to people who were already successful. And I always tell people, like people who are listening, like if you want to become successful, and they want to become the professional real estate, whether it was the fix and flipper back then and or commercial and other real estate ventures now, go and work for a guy like you. Go and work for a guy like me, because you're going to get spooled up so much quicker than if you were trying to do it yourself.
It's the ultimate hack. There's not even anything out there better.
And I say it all the time, but nobody nobody actually does anything about it. They're like, how do I become like you? I'm like, go and find me. Go and find Grant. Go and like I was willing to do whatever. I would have worked for Grant for free. He paid me because I was the pilot, and then he gave me my first shot on a.
Were you good at sales? I can see you being a killer.
I am for sure a salesman, but I wasn't good at the type of sales at the time, because you got to remember, I was a captain for an airline. I ran a team of 4 and 5 and 6 people. I was a check airman. Like I had 4 bars. Like I was like pretty high up when I was coming back to work for Grant, but I was willing to take the step back and sweep the floors and be in sales and cold call car companies and cold call businesses. Like I was willing to do whatever it took. And I got spooled up eventually, right? Because I was role playing with Grant. But the thing I realized is like, I'm willing to do whatever it takes to get around Grant for long periods of time. Because he's an awesome individual. He's very ethical. Like he's very, very much the type of guy who I want to be. And so I was like, I'll fly for you. I'll do your sales. I'll do the real estate. But when he gave me an opportunity, that's really when it happened. It was over Christmas. Elena's like, hey, come over for dinner. And he came back. He was pissed. He had 340 units. There was some units that needed to be leased out and rented in Daphne, Alabama. And I started asking him questions like, hey, man, how can I help? Hey, how can I help? How can I? And he's like, man, you really like this real estate thing, right? And I'm like, yeah. I've got 21 units and here they are. And he's like, dude, that's all shit. That's all garbage. And I was like, what do you mean that's all garbage? Like I worked my ass off to get these, right? And he's like, Ryan, I'm doing portfolios of 800 units, of 400 units, of 300 units. Like one deal was 400 units. And I was like, that's what I want to do. And so all these things started tying together. Like I'm flying the airplane. We're landing in Panama City Beach, looking at 1,000 units. We're landing in Houston, looking at, 3,000 units. We're landing in Scottsdale. We're landing all over. Like we're traveling together and we're like a unit. And I was really able to study Grant, how he thinks, what he thinks of locations, how he underwrites deals. Like I didn't even know how to underwrite deals. Like the biggest thing in real estate for me was like, what is a good deal? When you're going and buying at an auction, you're like, this thing sold for 200. I'm buying it for 20. You're buying off of basis. You're not buying off of yield. You're not buying off cap rates. You're not buying off of cash flow. You're buying because you're like, this is a really good ass deal. Mm-hmm. I know it in my heart, but there is some speculation to it. Like, will this market come back up? With Grant, he is so sophisticated and he's more of like an institution. All he buys for is yield, going in cap rates and yield, cash on cash to the investors. And so that's that game that I wanted to learn, because I think too many of us get stuck on our past and we're not focused on the future. I don't want to keep doing what I've been doing in the past. I want to go and do 10x what I've been doing in the future, because that's what I know I was built to do.